2026 for Forsyth Creek Week. It is Wednesday, March 25th, and I am so excited to have all these wonderful panelists here. For all the knowledge about water in our county, we've got some of the best brains on this table here. So I encourage everybody to get your brains turning. If anything sparks your interest, please raise your hand and ask those questions that you've been wondering about for a long time. Today we're going to hit on issues like water quality in Forsyth County, issues in our watershed, cool things going on in the region, and actions we can all take to help our waters. So on our panel at the end here, we have Edgar Miller, the Yadkin River Keeper. We also have Winston-Salem Forsyth County Utilities Deputy Director Bill Brewer. And we have Town of Kernersville Stormwater Manager Wendy Hardup, and Foothills Group of the Sierra Club, Paul Kelly, who's heading up their Clean Water Project. So I will get started with the questions over here. Okay, first question to our panelists. Sorry that I'm behind you, just perk your ears. Could each of you go down, we'll start with Edgar, and we'll highlight a significant project or initiative your organization has been involved in related to waterways this year.
Just one? No.
Whatever you want to talk about, Edgar.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, well, thank you all for coming out tonight, and appreciate the opportunity to talk about the state of the river, state of the water, which are kind of one and the same thing. I think, you know, if I had to highlight an individual program that has given us a little better understanding of what's going on in our watershed is our swim guide program that is administered by Nicole Eastman, who is also here this evening on the YRK staff. And when I first came on board, we were sampling 4 sites, most of which were in High Rock Lake, which never had any bacterial contamination problems. It has other problems, of course. But we were able to expand that to 9 sites the following year. And when I say sites, these are either public swimming areas or paddle access areas where we sample for E. coli bacteria and then publish that information on a weekly basis from Memorial Day to Labor Day. And that has been a real eye-opener. And I don't know if we can stop the slide presentation, but as you see the map going around, I don't know.
Tell me
when you see the map with the red and yellow.
We'll get that.
There we go. So a little hard to see there, but you can see all that red, and that means that these sites failed. What percentage?
I think over 66.
So over 2/3 of the time, these failed to meet the EPA guideline for E. coli bacteria for recreational use. And the yellow, I think, was at 50%.
Yeah, I think it was a 1/3.
Right, and the only 2 sites that once again did not fail, I think, all year were 2 swim areas on High Rock Lake, which is a good thing. I was told I need to emphasize the positive tonight. So 2026, you do the math. But the interesting there on those bottom 3 sites there with the 2 green, that red is on Abbott's Creek, and we saw some unusual spikes. There is a Lake City Lexington's wastewater treatment plant is upstream from that. We really haven't figured out, maybe those occurred later in the summer.
Yeah, they were all second round.
Yeah, so I don't know if there were rain events or potential sewer overflows.
There were some rain events at the beginning of July, and then pretty much on there, even when there wasn't rain, it was.
So, and I think, you know, it's also an impressive program. We had, how many volunteers helped us collect those 26 samples?
About 13.
Yeah, so it's a great volunteer outreach program, and provides great public information to folks that want to know about when it's safe to swim or get in the water.
Thank you, Edgar. Bill, would you like to talk about a program or initiative that your organization's been doing this year?
Sure. There's, you know, because of the nature of what we do with water treatment and wastewater treatment, there's a lot of things that impact the waterways. I think the most significant, there's actually a couple that I'd like to touch on, is our continued work on the technical advisory group for the High Rock Nutrient Management Plan, development of the rules that are going to dictate the discharge limits that we're going to have in our permits in future years. And related to that, we just kicked off a master planning effort for our wastewater treatment facilities. And they will be impacted by those rules when they come out. And that plan is gonna kind of lay the roadmap for us as to when we make specific upgrades, you know, not only from a nutrient perspective, but also from a capacity perspective, because in the 2030 to 2035 time range, according to our collection system master plan, we're gonna need to make capacity upgrades in order to handle the amount of loading that we're gonna be getting from growth in the community. So
That was my second project, so.
I
Checks
thought you were
checks in the mail, yeah, checks in the mail, man.
So those are probably the two biggest that we have going on.
Cool. Wendy, would you like to talk about the projects you're working on in town of Kernersville's stormwater?
Well, first, because I'm here to represent all the municipalities, I'm just gonna talk about the fact that our biggest initiative is Creek Week, and this is our 14th year. I'm so happy to have everybody involved this year. It seems like a lot of our events have really upped in participation, and that's been super exciting this year. We've raised $19,000 to be able to do Creek Week, so that's pretty amazing also. And for Kernersville, I guess our biggest thing is we have several stream restorations we're doing, and always try to have some sort of volunteer component as part of that. So that's my biggest thing.
Paul, do you have a certain project that you're excited about?
Absolutely.
I feel like you did.
First of all, Bill, I want to thank you and everybody at Water Utilities for what y'all do, because in my opinion, y'all are unsung heroes.
Well, thank you.
Because what y'all have to do to keep our water safe, to me, is incredible, and I'm very grateful to you. I think everybody ought to be sending you thank you cards and flowers.
Not the usual
chocolate.
grams you get, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I appreciate
Seriously.
that. Yeah, thank you.
No. What I'm excited about with Foothills Group is the Foothills of the North Carolina Sierra Club chapter decided to choose a water quality project, which is in accordance with the National Sierra Club's priority for pushing states to strengthen their water quality regulations and monitoring and enforcement. So what we've done is that we reached out to everybody in the water quality world. We've spoken to Edgar and Nicole. We spoke to Jessica Mendez-Rowe with the PEA. We talked to this lady who took me to school about water quality issues. So did Edgar. We talked to faculty at the Environmental and Sustainability Studies at Wake Forest. Talked to Mike Bowman and Madeline Loban at the Soil and Water Conservation. Rebecca Krebs, we've talked to her with the Agriculture Extension. Gosh, who else we talked? Oh, Valerie Romero with Environmental Development. When we were done, I had spoken to at least 24 people, and they all took me to school on a variety of things that helped us decide how we wanted to work this collaborative. Now, we decided to do a collaborative with all these organizations because no one organization can fix this. All of these organizations are working very hard, and you're going to hear more from, I know, the River Keepers with what Edgar and this lady over there are doing, Nicole is doing, that is pretty incredible work, pretty massive. But Edgar said something to me that I haven't gotten out of my head yet. He said that High Rock Lake has been a discussion since the 80s. So what we're wanting to do with our
I was still in
collaborative,
college, man.
I mean, that's like getting it fixed with record speed, right? You know, and so what we want is through this collaborative to develop an action plan that will result in, I'll just say it, better laws regulating water quality, because in this state and across the nation, they are not any close to where they need to be, and I think everybody in this room agrees with it. We want to do 2 activities to achieve that. The first is to do an outreach, public awareness campaign, reaching people who are not necessarily in the environmental world. Most of our organizations will reach out and give information to people that are already on their mailing lists, those kinds of things, their membership groups. But many of those people in the membership groups are like I was with the Sierra Club. I like the magazine, that's to send a donation, I read the magazine, and cool, they're on the job, I don't have to worry about it. That's pretty cool. That's how a lot of these folks on our mailing list are. It's only when I became a member of the executive committee of the Foothills Group and started talking to people, I was horrified. I didn't know this. And so I had my question, why didn't I know this? Why didn't somebody tell us about this? And the more I talked to people, they gave me some pretty egregious reasons as why I didn't know this. So first, the public awareness campaign, very broad-based. It's got to be multimedia. We know we're going to need some money to do this. There's a consultant from the Sierra Club chapter in Raleigh that can help us with digital media messaging. So we're looking forward to consulting with her and getting help from her. The second piece of it is where Nicole comes in, and she and Dave Zimmer, I was impressed. Nicole is looking after the mitigation committee. The mitigation committee will look at small-scale mitigation projects, consult with local governments and state governments around how to conduct restoration projects, those kinds of things. So, in my head, a mitigation project that we do through the collaborative is a twofer. One, we reduce bad stuff getting into the water. Secondly, it's a great public awareness, public engagement campaign opportunity. So Nicole and Dave Zimmer from the Audubon Society have already started consulting with Wanda. Is that not one? I'm blocking her name. Wendy. Oh, another Wendy. Sorry. I'm old.
Becoming 3s.
It's okay.
Wendy Hawkins is a sustainability coordinator at Salem Academy and College, and she envisioned a plan to reduce the amount of pollutions coming off the water runoff from the campus. And Nicole and Dave did a great job of walking over the land in the area that she's talking about, and began talking about the kinds of restoration and mitigation efforts it would take to achieve that. Now, how long it takes to get that done, who knows? It could be a year. She's got a lot of planning and there's a lot of work to do. And I think they talked with you some too, didn't they?
Yeah.
That is a perfect example of what we hope to achieve through this collaborative effort. Hopefully, we can combine everybody together on projects that ordinarily we might not work together on to achieve something concrete and measurable. So our vision for the collaborative is this. Lack of data is not the problem here. The problem is being able to get out there and actually do work to mitigate these, right? That's the problem, and that's the challenge for us. So we hope by doing these 2 actions, one feeds off the other, that we can make a difference with water quality. So we'll see how it goes.
Cool. Well, thank you all for talking about your projects and everything that's going on. Now we'll kind of circle back to the why. So I'm going to start in the middle this time, and the question is, in your opinion, from your perspective, what are the most pressing issues facing our water systems today? And I'll start with Wendy, and then we'll go down to Bill.
Why do you have Bill go first? Well, since I'm here to represent stormwater, I'm gonna say our most pressing issue for stormwater conveyances in our system itself is just lots more runoff that we're having to deal with and handle, an aging system that most people don't necessarily think of as being a utility. So it's an underserved thing that you're conveying all this water, but the pipes are not gonna last forever, so we're having to really just respond to emergencies to handle some of that in most of our cities. So, in addition to whatever pollution people are putting in there.
Okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
So if you're asking the question in the context of the systems that we manage, so on the water side, everything you see above ground is in pretty good shape. I think for us, the next big rock that we're gonna have to tackle from a water treatment perspective and distribution perspective is the distribution system. It's all the stuff you can't see that's underground. We've done some studies and looked at the numbers, and in the next 20 years, the average age of our pipe in the ground is gonna really, really increase. Because we've got some pipe in the system that's been installed, it was installed in the 1920s. So it's fairly old. So
Almost as old as Edgar.
yeah, very old. So that's gonna be a really, really important point of focus for us in the next few years. On the collection system side, we started a journey about 10 years ago on what we call a collection system improvement program. And it is a program where we're actively going through all of our collection system pipes. We're cammering them, we're finding where point repairs are needing to be made, and we're going into whole neighborhoods, and this has been ongoing for the last 10 years. We're doing smoke testing, developing plans and specs to renovate those neighborhoods. And the whole goal of that program is to reduce the amount of sanitary sewer overflows that we have. And that really ties back to the first question you asked, because that has a direct impact on the waterways, the creeks and streams that sanitary sewer overflows can end up in. Ultimately, they'll make their way all the way to the Yakin, which makes its way to High Rock Lake. So it's all related and it's all attached. So from our system perspective, those are the two big things. And the collection system improvement program, even though it was originally intended as a 10-year program, we're going to be continuing that in some form or fashion, into the foreseeable future.
How many miles of pipe do you all have? Ever come up with a number for that?
Yeah, I know.
1825.
I was going to say 1,800 was what stuck in my mind. Now, distribution water is 22 or over 2,000. I think it's 2,200. So I know that water, if you laid it all straight, it would reach from Arkansas to California.
That's a good fact.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, when it gets to the emerging issues slide, if you can pause it there, because I think Bill's making an excellent point that all these things are tied together, and I do want to acknowledge Paul's great work trying to facilitate this broader community conversation about what can we do to advocate for not only stronger environmental and water quality provisions in our laws and regulations, but also doing stuff at that grassroots level. I think that's extremely important to connect people to their waterways. I was just at a Utilities Commission hearing last night in the Rowan County Courthouse. I had no idea. I mean, they swear people in and make you put your hand on the Bible. And
Oh, wow.
I mean, you talk about being intimidated. I mean, it was probably the worst government meeting or hearing I'd ever been to, because they don't answer questions. The lawyers, even for the public staff, the Utilities Commission has a public staff which is theoretically supposed to represent the people and the consumers on rate paying and other things of that nature. And they ask questions like, how do you spell your name? What's your address? And that was it. And they had so many opportunities to educate the public. The public, I mean, they were getting up there talking about stuff that had nothing to do with the plans for, this was a certificate for public convenience. I don't know how it's named that, a certificate for public convenience and necessity. So you have to get this approved by the Utilities Commission before you can build a huge power plant or expand or double the size of the Buck Steam Station, which is what they're proposing to do on the river in Rowan County. And they just had so many opportunities to say this is not a hearing about increased rate because everybody's complaining about their power bills going up, which, you know, is a thing, obviously. Or they were complaining about, guess what? The data center that they want to put across the road from the power plant. And it raises all these questions immediately. Is all that extra energy that you want to build and pollute further here tied to this data center, or is this really needed? So I have this on the list of emerging issues, what I'm calling the fossil fuel infrastructure, because not only are they proposing to double the size of the gas combustion facilities at Buck, they also are talking about two similar sized plants on the Yadkin right across from each other in Davidson and Davie County. And, you know, this was the first we learned about it. We learned about it before it really became public because of some research another group had done. And we were contacted by a reporter, which we kind of declined to speak to about it, or we talked to her about it, but we didn't really have anything to base our concern on. But they're looking at two sites. One, the old site where they tried to build a Perkins nuclear plant in Davie County back in, I guess the late 70s, which was the ultimate environmental battle on the Yadkin River for many years. And David Springer, who owned the South Point, where the South Yadkin and the Yadkin come together, almost single-handedly stopped that project. But now they're looking at it for a gas plant. And then on the historic Horseshoe Neck site near Davidson Water, one of the most historic, scenic, wildest stretches of the river, they want to put a huge 1,400 megawatt gas plant. So, you know, we understand the need. I mean, the recent cold snap weather, where Duke was asking people to conserve energy, you may remember them doing that. I mean, they pushed the limits. I mean, they were like maybe within a couple thousand megawatts of maxing out. And now though, they want to add another probably 6 to 10 megawatts, 6 to 10,000 megawatts through these new plants on the Yadkin River. And we don't have information on water usage. We don't have information on what kind of water or discharge permits they'll require. And folks at the meeting last night, I didn't fact check it, but they were saying the whole cycle of fracking and using methane gas is actually ultimately more polluting than coal. And so, you know, the Sierra Club's advocacy on this has been important, but, you know, there were no state or national groups there. I didn't speak last night. It's not my bailiwick, but it's coming. And it's going to be a huge issue that we are going to have to decide, you know, what kind of position we're going to take, while also, you know, recognizing the need for you know, more energy, but maybe not at the level of demand just because you want to build a data center across the street from the power plant. And they're using different kinds of technologies that aren't the most efficient, the best technologies. So the public is not happy. I mean, there was probably 100 people there, and they were carrying signs. And this was not organized, you know, Appalachian Voices or Sierra Club. And I'm sure you had some members there. But that's what's really got me concerned right now, along with this other longer list of issues, including regulatory gridlock and political opposition to what we're trying to do. Because apparently some people don't need clean water. I wasn't aware of that, but yeah.
Yeah, great issues. Paul, would you like to talk about the Sierra Club's perspective on the biggest issues facing our water systems?
Yeah. And my response is gonna seem odd, but it has to do with some of what Edgar just said. Everyone I talked to for this project, some of that 24 people I told you about, most of them talked about, very briefly, two things. One, an uninformed, apathetic public. Secondly, was the lack of legislative will to make a difference. They explained to me that one reason we lack legislative will is that in order to clean up what is already polluted and requires attention, and then to put in a system to make sure that doesn't happen anymore on any scale at all, to make a measurable difference long-term, would be at such a massive cost that it's difficult for legislators to build much legislative willingness to tackle that. So they will accept periodically small bills that may make some small difference in some way in some location. But everybody I talked to agreed that the pollution levels in our waterways continue to increase. They told me despite we have the Environmental Protection Agency, we have the Department of Environmental Quality, we have all of these environmental management commissions and one organization after another whose role in government is to protect our waterways. Now, I say that not to disparage our friends at the EPA or the DEQ. We all know that their revenues have been cut and they've had to cut their capacity to monitor and enforce. Same thing with the EPA. From what I learned about our friends at DEQ and the EPA, these are very knowledgeable, dedicated, passionate, serious people. They're just limited legislatively from the impact of what they're capable of doing and what they know to do. So I think a bigger challenge here for our water quality is public awareness. I think if enough public understand what's going on and communicate with the legislators, we'll start seeing some legislative movement. My nephew is with the Environmental Defense Fund, and I talked to him about this. He agrees that as a general statement, across the board, our pollution levels in the waters continue to increase. He does say that as a general statement, our water quality is safe, and more than one person said, and our water quality in this area is really good.
Drinking water.
What did I say?
Water quality,
Water
but
quality.
our drinking
Oh,
water.
our drinking water
Yeah,
quality,
yeah.
sorry about that.
No,
It's, you know, it's.
Just want to clarify.
I'm
Yeah.
glad you did that, because I need a caretaker, really.
You're welcome.
Thank you. It's like this. The way this was explained to me is this. Most of us draw a glass of water from a spigot. If it ain't brown and it ain't got critters in it, it's over. If I get out on the river and I paddle and nothing nicely floats by, it's all good. So what we need.
Dead cow.
Yeah, dead cow. Yeah, I heard a lot about cows in the river.
My obsession.
So I think our collaborative wants to address in some way, educating people, providing information to people, not to alarm them, but to educate them and empower them. I think the message has to be, this is the issue, this is why it should concern you, and here's what you can do about it. People tend to think if I get involved with this, I'm gonna have to do a lot of complicated stuff and invest a lot of time. My nephew told me about an example of why that's not true. He said that, the stereotype is Democrats are really great on the environment and Republicans not so much. That's not necessarily true when you dig a little deeper into how this thing works. A Republican legislator in North Carolina called my nephew up and said constituents had informed him about their concern around some environmental issue. I think it had to do with wetlands. Well, enough of them communicated their concern to him that he called the Environmental Defense Fund to say, what kinds of things do we need to do? What do I need to do to represent my constituents with this matter? That's only one example of what a call campaign, a telephone call campaign, or an email campaign can achieve. So my own grandson looked at me and said, Grandpa, I can't believe I'm grandpa to a 35-year-old person,
That's weird when you're the same age as old people, right?
Yeah, I mean, come on, man, you're supposed to be 12. So, what he said was, you know, we're all working, we all pay our bills. It's hard for us to think about getting involved. And so I had a conversation with him, it's not that hard. I think the other thing is that it's difficult for people to get information. Most of the information that goes out through organizations like the Sierra Club goes to our people in our mailing list. Well, I talked to, again, a lot of people, and us and the Audubon Society of Riverkeepers, PEA, we all have community, we call them public education programs. Well, what happens is, with the Sierra Club, we might get 20, 25 people, we might get 10 people, we might get 8 people every month, and it's usually the core group of people. My guess is that with the Riverkeepers and the Audubon Society, it's much the same thing, because we only know to send out to people that's on our mailing list. Well, with the PEA Earth Fair, they may get, what, 5,000 or 6,000 people this thing go?
9,000.
9,000?
One time.
That's big, that's big. And then in the aggregate, with all the people that each of us have our little programs, 25 people at a time, we probably touch, at some level, probably around 15,000 people out of an area of almost 400,000 people. So I think getting the word out to people that are not in the environmental family is the key to this, in order to generate public demand for legislation.
I think that's a great way to go into our next question, and actually going to skip to number 4 for our panelists, because Paul talked a little bit about individual action.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, please, that was wonderful. So, we'll go back to Edgar for this one. What role can individuals play in addressing water quality and quantity challenges?
Let Bill take that first. Yeah, go.
Okay, Bill, you go first.
So, life is about choices, right? So I think what individuals can do is balance their choices with the impact that that choice has on the environment. I mean, even little things that individuals can do can be impactful, because if you think about it, one person making a small change, whether it's how much water they use, you know, whether they're running with water when they're brushing their teeth, just small things like that. If you have 1,000 people doing that, it adds up. So every person's choice does make a difference. And it also, you can also apply that logic to the products that you buy. You know, we haven't talked about PFAS, surprisingly, because we're talking a lot about water, but there's a lot of products that have PFAS in them. You don't have to buy those products. You can do research and make a decision. So to me, it boils down to choices. And you know, I will say this: it's been my experience that people, and I say this in a general sense, but most people don't really care about things unless it impacts them directly. And I think if we can figure out a way to get folks to understand that it does impact you directly, ultimately, I think we'll be in a better place. So I think that's what individuals can do.
Yeah, and I last night at the hearing, you know, at any hearing I go to, I'm always amazed at the pipeline hearings, the other public hearing we had on the Alcoa stormwater permit, the industrial stormwater permit, which, by the way, the new NPDES permit did result in them at least being required to post warning signs that their outfalls into the bay and lake. We tried to get those outfalls moved or diverted away from the public swimming area, but literally they have an outfall that contaminates or discharges contaminated stormwater with fluoride and cyanide in it right into the swim area, which to me just makes no sense on any level, but it is what it is. But now we've at least got signs posted there as a result of the new permit. But, you know, I go to these hearings and I'm just always blown away at the individuals that get up and take their time and share their concerns. Like I said, last night, there were just a lot of big disconnects. The public, they were there because of self-interest mostly. Either they were gonna build this beside them, or gonna destroy their neighborhood, or, you know, it was gonna raise their power bills, right? And that's when it hits them in the pocket, just like you do with your rate increases. I'm sure that's always a big deal for you.
Oh, yeah, yep.
So, you know, affordability is a real issue, but it's gonna cost a lot. I think I said this last year. It's gonna cost a lot to improve water quality and maintain water quality, particularly in the face of this growth we're seeing. And so, you know, I think that's where we have to, Paul's point, we have to build this public support for this. And so that's, to me, what individuals can do. And what I know all of you do, it's not just enough for us professional hired guns to go in and say, oh, this is gonna be bad for water quality, do X, Y, and Z. But really educating the public to be in that forum, because the victories that we've seen, it's because of that. The 300 people that showed up to oppose a rock quarry mine near Lake Hampton on Deep Creek in Hamptonville, very conservative, you know, part of the area. And you know, the commissioners listened and they denied the permit. The turnout that we had at the Alcoa public hearing, you had the people that got up and spoke in favor of Alcoa's positions, that they don't need any more permit requirements. It was either town council members that used to work for Alcoa, or people that were on the payroll for Alcoa currently. And you know, it just, I mean, I just felt so proud that we had individuals that knew enough to get up and say, and were strong enough. We had our staff there, but others, board members and volunteers, that got up and made those comments. And I think that's gonna be about the only way that we can change some of this.
Wendy, would you like to talk about that?
I mean, I think what Bill said really covered a lot of what I would have said. I think everything that you can do to try to reduce your impact would be great, and if you can, you know, get your neighbors to do it, convince everybody to do it, the more we all contribute to doing less that impacts our water quality, or at least trying to learn what those things could be, would be helpful. So, I mean, if we can do them more and more at the neighborhood level, the watershed level, rather than just individuals, that's gonna have a far bigger impact. But I also want people to know that whatever they do is something, and it's better than nothing.
Well, yeah, you know, I mean, I don't know about y'all, but growing up, leaving my closet light on was like the #1 sin in my house, right?
Right.
I mean, you know, it was just like, if I left the closet light on, I was gonna hear about it for days from my mother.
Exactly.
And you know, so, I mean, you think, well, what does that really, what difference does that make? But as Bill said, if 1,000 people turn their closet lights off, that would be less electricity, so less
Yeah.
power plants. It's a cascading effect.
Yeah.
Can I add to this discussion?
Please do.
It's your turn, man.
Yeah.
Come on.
They'll never invite me back here, you know. I agree with everything that you're saying, and I want to add that people may make the right decisions if they know they have those decisions to make. They need to be informed about the options that they have. And my experiences when I've talked to some people about these kinds of things, they go, oh, I didn't know that. I can do that? So I think we have a responsibility, all of us in this room, to do this stuff. I think we have a responsibility to give people information to help them make those kinds of decisions. Because I think most people, if they understand what the situation is and they know what options are available for them, many of them will make the right decision. So I think it's up to us to somehow, Bill, get that information out to people in a way that they can use it. But we can't use language with like 10 syllables in it, you know, it's gotta be very concise and succinct, and engaging for people. But I really believe once they get that information, that they know the decisions they can make, more people will make the right ones. But we gotta give them, we have to empower people.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I think the majority of the people want to do the right thing. And education is a big piece of
Right.
getting them there.
And if it doesn't cost them anything extra, or it's actually cheaper,
Could save the money, yes.
then I think they would adopt it. It's when you ask people to do a lot of things that cost them more, that they don't wanna do it. I mean, that's why industry doesn't wanna volunteer to do things, we have to force them to do things, because they wanna save money also, so they can make more money. We all wanna make money.
Yeah, they came up a couple times last night about Duke's $11 billion profits last year, so. And they want to go with the cheaper technologies, more polluting technologies, because it saves them money so they can make more money.
Right, and they're allowed to use some of those, so.
They are.
That's right, they are.
Alright, well, I'm actually gonna skip our last question in the interest of time, because I wanna make sure that everybody who came here also gets to ask our wonderful panelists questions. So we talked a lot about the current projects that are going on in Forsyth County around our waterways, both our drinking water systems and our surface water. We talked about the most pressing issues facing our waterways and actions that individuals can take. So we heard a lot of wonderful information, I'd like to open it up now to any members of the crowd who have any questions for our panel at large, or anybody specifically on the panel. Feel free.
I have a question.
Sorry, I'm just checking my puppy cam. It's not good, whatever.
She's timed out.
Yeah.
I've got a question, based on today's and last week's events at my job. How do you explain to property owners that a pipe running through their property is their pipe?
Bill, you might be the best one for
Yeah.
this. I learned about this last night from Bill too.
Yeah, so, I mean, our water and sewer policies, use the right of way as the delineation. And, you know, we have a lot of conversations with customers, and sometimes, you know, typically we kind of use the meter as the break point. Usually the meter is within the right of way. That's not always the case, but for the most part it is. So, I mean, basically what we tell them is everything between our main and the meter is ours, and then anything beyond the meter is yours. And the reason there has to be that delineation is because we cannot come on to private property and make changes or do work, because we can't be responsible for people's property. So there has to kind of be that break point, and usually the right of way and the easements associated with them are pretty well delineated. So we just have that conversation with them and explain it as best we can.
And it's the same for stormwater pipe as well. We have to stop at that right of way, or if there are easements that say that they're publicly maintained. So, we're not allowed to because the General Assembly doesn't say we can. And we are all bound, when you work for a municipality, by what the General Assembly says. So, you'll see that on my slides, it says gas. Because the General Assembly said so. Or if they don't say, then you don't have anything to support being able to do that. But
Not like gas lighting? No, just kidding.
yeah. But in North Carolina, the right-of-way is what we're allowed to work within. And that's usually accepted by each of the cities and counties along with the developers when they create it. So,
I got a question for Bill. Bill, you mentioned PFAS earlier. Can you give us a general sense of, from a utilities perspective, what y'all are being asked to do, what you think you will ultimately be required to do? Are you currently doing any testing for that at the intake or the finished product?
The answer is yes. We, you know, the EPA set limits for PFAS and PFOA. They also set a health index number for a handful of other PFAS compounds. Now, the American Water Works Association has filed a petition for an administrative review of the rule.
What's drinking water?
For the drinking water standards. It's my understanding they're gonna review the MCLs of 4 for PFAS and PFOA.
Maximum concentration levels?
Yes, I'm sorry, yeah, maximum concentration levels. So those could change, and I think it's also my understanding they're gonna rescind the health index because there's really not a basis in the Safe Drinking Water Act for that. So, to the point of sampling, we sample the raw water and we sample a couple places in the production process of the plants, and then we sample what is discharged to the public. And we have not detected anything above the detection level for the test, which coincidentally is 4 parts per trillion. So, from a compliance standpoint, we're in very good shape. But I think my gut tells me, and that's all it is just intuition, is I think that number, that 4 could change, and most likely will.
Well, I mean, and I don't believe the state has actually adopted that, have they?
I don't believe they have.
Right, and so with the current administration looking at some of these regulatory rollbacks, it could very well change.
Yeah, and with the changes that they've made, the effective date isn't for a couple more years.
And I guess you all have some of the filter technology or the cleaning technology that can help with that already online?
We have some treatment, we can feed powder activated carbon, and the levels that we're seeing, I mean, they're so
hard to
much.
justify that.
Yeah. I mean, we do have chemicals that can be effective at reducing it, not completely removing it. But, you know, we're not in the same shape that, you know, say Greensboro is, who have to install a broader technology to
Just
treat.
because the levels that they're seeing.
Exactly.
Are there any other questions from the crowd?
So when you look up the river, what concerns utilities?
There's a lot of things, you know, climate change, drought. You know, we've been in a wet pattern lately, but, I mean, you probably remember the drought of '02 and '08. You know, those, I think, were, with the weather extremes that we're seeing, I can't believe that we're not gonna see some dry periods that eclipse what we've seen in the past. And even some wet periods that have eclipsed what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and that's a real big concern with, you know, these interbasin transfers. I mean, Charlotte Water is proposing to transfer 35 million gallons a day of treated wastewater into the Rocky River in the Yadkin PD Basin. And the people downstream of Charlotte in South Carolina are obviously freaking out because even though it's wastewater, they don't want to see that go away in case of these drought situations that Bill's talking about. And you know, I was at a gardening conference on Friday, and we had a speaker from Tennessee, and she was showing us pictures of where the Mississippi River has virtually dried up, and it's covered with sandbars that, you know, have to be dredged so the big ships can get through there. And then she showed the pictures of the dead zone in the Gulf caused by all the nutrients coming from all the agriculture that drains into the Mississippi River. And so, you know, the combined effects of those two kind of trends is something that I think we do need to be concerned about here, particularly now that we see a potential increase in demand for these power plants. I mean, the two nuclear power plants that Duke had originally proposed to put on the river, which we think may not be happening now because of these gas plants, they were both projected to consume 50 million gallons of water a day from the Yadkin, and right now the amount estimated to be used for all purposes, ag, commercial, residential, is around 200 million gallons a day. I mean, that's maybe a slightly inflated number. So we need to go back and check to see how much demand is going to occur. We need to really stop these interbasin transfers because we need to keep the water in our watershed. And Charlotte needs to stop growing, just like that. Boom! There. That'll show them.
All right, well, thank you everybody for coming. Let's give our panelists a hand or a round of applause. Being on the panel, answering these questions. We're gonna have some time to mingle now, so if you did want to talk to anybody personally, please feel free to grab some more snacks and hang out for a little bit. And again, thank you all so much for coming, and happy Creek Week.